This is a video series on how English language heads of departments and teachers can apply the 6 principles of English language teaching and learning, and the 6 teaching processes in planning their school's English language curriculum, developing lessons and materials, and making decisions about how to teach English. In this series, 2 teachers, Ms. Sulastri Suyot and Ms. Sam Karman, talk about how they applied ACoLADE thoughtfully and flexibly when making decisions and taking deliberate action as they teach to support students' learning. Sulastri and Karman will make references to their Secondary 2 Express and Secondary 2 Normal Technical classrooms respectively. In this video, Sulastri and Karman speak about how they applied the ACoLADE processes of facilitating assessment for learning and structuring consolidation. They consider questions such as: how can we find out how well students have learned and applied the language skills and learner strategies we have taught them? What can we do when there are gaps in students' learning? How can we enable students to plug their learning gaps? And how can we reinforce students' learning so that it can become meaningful and personally relevant? So how did Sulastri and Karman go about facilitating AfL in their classrooms? Karman has taught her Sec 2 Normal Technical students to formulate WH questions. Sulastri has taught her Sec 2 Express students to formulate questions and learn other skills and learner strategies for making inferences and drawing conclusions as they read. Her students then applied these skills and learner strategies to making inferences and drawing conclusions about how the protagonist in an expedition to Antarctica became lost during a blizzard. Facilitating AfL.
When you ask questions, you are actually checking your own understanding, right? And if we teach them questions or question starters like what makes you say that, then they will particularly look for pieces of evidence to support their understanding.
Yeah.
So traveling rhythm is for them to establish it because they're gonna be there for a couple of months.
Yes.
So they have to at first have their traveling rhythm so they can have a routine to follow.
Okay.
So they can adapt to the environment.
All right. So how could that possibly explain why Keizo Funetsu got lost in the blizzard?
Their journey in paragraph 12 took 220 days to complete. So you can imagine the 6 men doing the same routine day in, day out.
Yeah. And
so they could have caused boredom.
yes, and how would you link that to the fact that Keizo Funetsu lost his way in the blizzard?
Maybe he wasn't following his regular routine.
It could be that he wasn't following his regular routine, and that's why he got lost. Thank you, guys. Brilliant. Shall we give them a round of applause?
So Sulastri monitored the students' learning and developed their metacognitive awareness using questions that guide them to notice, monitor, and regulate how they are learning. Then, as the students presented evidence from the text their groups had found to support their conclusions, Sulastri continued to monitor and diagnose gaps in their learning by posing questions on their performance of the task. She also provided feedback to plug the learning gaps.
I kind of like the fact that you made those connections. And as expert readers, because we are on this journey, right, to find out what expert readers do, okay, expert readers make connections all the time. Okay? Next thing, what I like particularly about your work is the fact that you were able to explain in a very logical manner. Okay? But one area for improvement is for you to close the loop. Okay? And at the end of the loop is the fact that our friend from Japan, one of the 6 members from this team, got lost in a blizzard. So we are trying to explain the probable causes. Okay? So know your endpoint, use your evidence to explain the endpoint. All right, I'm going to give you like 1 minute for you to gather your thoughts, okay? So team 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, because afterwards it's going to go very quickly, okay? It's not going to be as slow as this process, right? The team reporter, if you have to make changes, you make the changes now. Remember, the endpoint is Keizo Funatsu got lost in the blizzard. Okay? 1 minute, you can discuss.
So, while monitoring her students' learning, Sulastri identified a learning gap. She then provided feedback that focused on what the students could do differently to improve their learning. And then she invited them to gather their thoughts and to reflect, so that the students could develop their metacognitive awareness of how they were performing the task and how they were learning in the process. Sulastri also provided an immediate opportunity for acting on the feedback, so that the students could use the feedback to revise their responses to the task before the next stage of the learning activity. Structuring consolidation. When students have learnt a concept, skill, or learn a strategy, their knowledge and skillfulness may be reinforced through application and use in different contexts, so that their learning can become meaningful and personally relevant. How did Sulastri and Karman reinforce their students' learning?
I will get them to sort of put down their learning points, and that's how I also structure their consolidation. Yeah, so that in the next new scenario or new context, right, I can always make them recall, what they have learned previously. What have you learned about being an expert reader? Yeah, so they have to write down, a specific learning point. Yeah.
So that helps consolidate their learning.
Yes,
as
that
well.
helps to consolidate their learning,
clear.
and they own that piece of reflection.
Sulastri consolidated learning by summarizing specific learning points. She also designed a learning activity through which the students could, with her support, reinforce their own learning by categorizing and making connections among the ideas they had been working with, thus strengthening their knowledge and skillfulness.
What are the categories that you have in mind?
The first category is challenge. Second category
Is the travelling rhythm, and
the third category is under nothing.
No category,
is under
The special category.
a special category. Okay, all right. Do you have any input? Or are you agreeable to this? They said that they want to group this under challenges. Challenges can be broken up. Excellent. Into what? Miscommunication. Lack of supplies. Okay, but lack of supplies is not part of the evidence. Remember? Low visibility. Yes. But how then would you want to separate this? Listen up. They are giving recommendations. Okay, they said that this one is too huge. You need to break it up into smaller. Okay, smaller categories. The whole thing was about writing an advisory note to the next team who will be embarking on the expedition to Antarctica. So the students are situated like the in-between, they have read somebody's account of a lived experience, of leading a team to Antarctica in 1989 to 1990, right? So that was the source text. So they gather the evidence to support their understanding of the text so that they would sound credible when they write the advisory note to the next team going. So there is this relationship between reading and writing. Yeah. So when you read like a writer. When you write like a reader.
Sulastri began by co-constructing such an advisory note with her students.
Because they need to see how we do it before they can actually do it.
Yeah.
So, and by releasing that responsibility slowly, one thing at a time, you find that you're building their confidence.
Yes.
Yes, and if they were to do it long enough, with multiple times of practice, because you have the class and then the group and then the pair and then the individual. So you can see that they have a chance of practicing the skills over and over again.
You've just been introduced to facilitating AFL and structuring consolidation. They are two of the 6 teaching processes of ACoLADE. Together with the 6 principles of EL teaching and learning, or CLLIPS, they are used by teachers in making decisions about teaching for learning in the EL classroom.